It is our privilege to welcome here former President Carter's niece, Kim Fuller, who runs the organization Friends of Jimmy Carter, honoring his life and legacy in his hometown of Plains, Georgia, which is where Kim is now. Kim, first and foremost, I want to express our condolences for your loss and our sentiments with you and your family. You notably once quoted your uncle, of course, you notably once quoted your uncle, I've seen the video, as saying, quote, "I have one life and one chance to make it count for something. My faith demands that I do whatever I can, wherever I can, whenever I can, for as long as I can." That quote really means something. And I wonder, when you hear that, what do you think about your uncle's legacy and what it will be?
When I hear that quote, the main thing I think about Uncle Jimmy is that he was a man of his word. He lived life the way that he thought it should be lived. He didn't sway from one side to the other. When you talk to him, his faith always showed through whatever the conversation was. He really meant what he talked about, especially like in Sunday school lessons. I'll always remember when my cousin Jeremy passed away, his grandson, and I taught Sunday school for about 20 minutes that morning because they were in Atlanta. And I'll never forget, he told me, he said, I'll be there because I'm supposed to be. And I really think that, and he did, he came in, but I really think that that was part of his faith. He lived it, and he wasn't afraid to tell anybody about it.
He seemed to have this personal touch, whether it was in Sunday school, like you mentioned, or negotiating the Camp David Accords, or sitting down with world leaders, or shaking hands with people on a Delta flight. Where did that personal touch, in your view, come from?
Oh, that personal touch came from my grandmama. I know where that came from. All four of them were like that. They never met a stranger. I will always remember one day I was in the mall here in Plains, and Aunt Rosalind was walking around, and she was shopping. She had Secret Service with her, and a young man ran in, and he said, oh my gosh, is that First Lady Rosalind Carter? And the girl behind the desk says, yes, it is. And he said, oh, can we get close? And somebody said, oh, don't get too close. And all of a sudden, this voice came from the corner, and Uncle Jimmy said, well, I'm sitting right here. Don't you want to talk to me? And I thought the boy was going to faint, dead away on the floor. Uncle Jimmy never met a stranger. Neither did my daddy nor my two aunts. And Grandmama gave that to them. I really think so.
You're standing there in Plains, Georgia, a place that I have never been, admittedly, but I've always wanted to go. How much did Plains, Georgia... I thank you for the invitation. I'll be right there as soon as I can. But how much did Plains, Georgia impact who Jimmy Carter was?
I think that Plains impacted every facet of his life. I was talking to somebody this morning, and the thing about it is, he always came home. He always came home. From his travels, from the White House, from the governor's mansion, he came home. Plains is a part of his story. And you're going to make me cry. Plains is a part of his story, and without these sidewalks in Plains, you know, they raised him. And so he was always very grateful to not just the town, but our community here.
He came from a small town. He was the leader of the free world. Then he went back to a small town. That seems so different than the political environment we are in now. Do you think this country could ever produce another Jimmy Carter?
No, I do not. I think that Uncle Jimmy was one of a kind. I have hopes that maybe one day somebody's going to show up like him, but I don't know if we'll ever have anybody who lived the way that he what you saw is what you got, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And he lived his life for not just himself and his family, but for like you said, he was the leader of the free world, and I used to joke with him all the time about that. And but he was also the leader of our little community. He was the leader of our church. He was just the kind of leader that we need today.
Your aunt and uncle, and we just saw images of them not long ago in this broadcast, they had this famous love story, and you talked about it a little bit earlier.
Oh, gosh.
Take us inside, behind closed doors, of what they were like together, what that love story looked like in person.
Oh, they were always holding hands. I don't think there was a single time I went into their house when they were both there that they were not either sitting right next to each other or within arm's length of each other. You know, he called her Rosie a lot, and you would hear him call out to her, and there she was. Same thing with him. She would call out to him, and there he was. They truly loved each other very, very much. They walked up and down the sidewalk all the time and visited the stores, and the entire time they were holding hands. Even when towards the end of their life, when she would be on a walker and he would be in the wheelchair sometimes, they were still holding hands. And he's been so lonely. I know that. And I told somebody, you know, looking at some of the political cartoons that have come out, there's one that Mike Lukovich did that he's coming up, and there she is. And I told somebody, I said, I guarantee that she has pushed both St. Peter and Jesus out of the way so she could be the first one there. And their love story will transcend time, I think.
You're talking about that beautiful cartoon of them seeing each other again,
gosh, yeah.
in heaven. Yeah, it's very moving.
Yes.
I could do this all day. I have one more question for you, and thank you so much again for the privilege of your time. But how do you think your uncle changed this country?
I think he changed the country by bringing a human aspect into the White House, because he shared himself with all of us, us included. It was like you knew that he was on your side. He was someone who made sure that the people of our country were looked after. And a lot of times that didn't go over very well, we know that. But he was a man of peace, and he wanted to make sure that that happened. And I think that that's one of the big legacies he's going to take away from that White House, is the fact that he was a man of peace. And we need that. We really do need that.
Kim Fuller, the niece of President Jimmy Carter, this has been a privilege, this has been an honor, and our condolences again to you and your family.
Thank you so much for having me, Jay. I appreciate it.